If we don't like what we're doing, it's called stress. If we do love what we do, then it's called passion. Those are the words of my guest today, Simon Sinek. In fact, he says them on this show. So how do you make sure that what you're doing is passion and not stress? Maybe you're in the stress spot right now. Well, we have to figure out what our why is. Why are we doing what we do? Why do we exist? For what purpose? And then once we discover that, we have to have the courage to follow our why. Stick around for another fascinating discussion with my guest, Simon Sinek, on today's One Simple Thing podcast.
It's time to build a better business by building a better you. This is One Simple Thing.
Man, I don't know about you, but I'm so enjoying hearing Simon Sinek over these last couple of episodes. Looking forward to what he has to share with us again today here on the One Simple Thing podcast. I'm Dave Kirby. Thank you for listening. It is my pleasure once again to welcome Simon onto the show. He's the author of 2 books. His global bestseller and kind of a seminal work in the business community, Start With Why, led him to the second most watched TED Talk of all time. His latest book is called Leaders Eat Last. Kind of continues that thread of knowing why we do what we do and following our passion. He speaks around the globe. He's been featured in the New York Times, Inc. magazine, Business Week, and others as well. And it's my privilege now to welcome him to the One Simple Thing podcast. Simon, thanks for coming back.
Thanks. Nice to be back.
Yeah, so it's great to talk to you, and it's funny because when we kind of started these conversations, I expected that we were just going to kind of plow through your book, Start With Why, and kind of a pleasant alternate path has occurred where we're just kind of, I don't know, just exploring your thoughts, exploring life around us, and the power of asking questions, and kind of some of those simple topics that maybe get overlooked. And I was thinking about something that occurred to me. With this idea of starting with why. Can I start with why if I don't know what? Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if I have to decide what I'm doing before I can ask why I want to do it? Or is that the reason most people fail at what they're doing?
That's the reason most people fail at what they're doing. You know, most of us know what we do, and we don't have a reason for it. It's, like I know I'm an accountant, but I don't know why I'm an accountant, Is it just because I wanted to make money, or is it just because it was safe and my parents insisted that I do it? But what's the thing that wakes me up in the morning that inspires me to be an accountant? Like what am I doing at a very human level? Where's the service component? What's the purpose? What's the cause? What's the belief that's driving that decision? And for people who are in between things or having some sort of career crisis where they don't know what to do, that's the problem. And we do this to our kids as well. When they graduate high school or college, we ask them, what do you want to do? And we go through these lists. Well, I'd like to be a this, and I'd like to be a that, and maybe a scientist would be fun, but a nurse would be really fun too. And we start with what, and we're just sort of throwing spaghetti against the wall, and I guess some of it sticks. But when you have a sense of purpose, when you know why, it's incredible. It's like rose-colored glasses. It's like all of a sudden everything makes sense. It's better than rose-colored glasses because that's fake, right? Mm-hmm. It's this intense clarity that you get. So for example, me, right? My why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, right? So together we can change our world. So now the question is, what can I do to bring that to life? And immediately eliminates a whole host of career options, but introduces a whole bunch that I never imagined. I never set out to be a speaker or an author. I've now written 2 books, and I have these, and I do all these talks all over the world. That was not in the cards. I never dreamed of doing that. I didn't even know that was a career, right? But when all of a sudden my cause is to inspire others, those are obvious things that, of course, that's low-hanging fruit. I got to speak and I got to write, Yeah. So it's amazing the clarity we get when we have a sense of why we do what we do.
So if we don't know what to do, you're proposing that it's because we don't know why.
Correct. You might find out what, but like I said, it's sort of like a gamble. Sure, sometimes you win. Think about what we tell our kids, right? We tell our kids, find a job. Find a job. When you graduate, find a job. Nobody ever says, find a job you love. Find a job you love. So instead of thinking about what job, we think about what do I love in general? And then what job would help me advance the thing that I love? I love helping people. I love seeing people come and realize that they're capable of more than they thought they were. I love working in teams, and sort of that's then now we look for the jobs that give us the thing we love. This is how it works.
Going back to the first episode you and I did together, you talked about how the golden circle and how, and I love the way you kind of lay it out in your TED Talk, that our brains are structured to kind of mirror what you diagram as far as your golden circle, with
Right.
what being on the outside of that and why being in the center of that bullseye.
Right.
And that our limbic brain does not have the ability to generate speech. Is that correct? Language is not part of that limbic brain.
Correct. Our limbic brain includes that sort of early, prehistoric brain, and it controls our decision making and our reactions to things and our emotions. But yeah, it has no capacity for language, or it has no capacity for rational or analytical thought either. That all comes with our neocortex, with our Homo sapien brain.
So, if the limbic brain is where the why resides, and yet the limbic brain doesn't have the capacity for language, how do we ever get to the point where we can describe to ourselves in some way that makes sense what our why is?
Well, you can describe it, and what will happen is you'll have an emotional reaction. You'll get goosebumps or you'll well up. And this is why we usually use stories or metaphors. There's a whole industry right now of telling stories, storytelling. It's a big deal right now.
Yeah, it's a buzzword.
Right, it's a buzzword. But it's not the storytelling per se. It's using story to articulate the things that are hard to articulate. And we do it all the time. It's how we communicate our emotions to each other. We're in a relationship. We say, it's like this. It's like I'm on a train and I can't see the end of the track. Like we do it all the time. I was in the audience once for an award ceremony, and somebody who received an award was having trouble to explain how he felt, his gratitude for the award, and so he defaulted to a metaphor, to a story. He said, "I feel like I'm Indiana Jones out there," and we all understood what he meant and who he was and what drove him and what inspired him, because he used a story to try and explain what he meant. When do you well up? When do you get goosebumps? What TV shows? What stories do you hear on the news? What movies really sort of give you an emotional reaction? It usually is because it's tapping into some sort of innate sense of purpose or cause or your why. Because we don't all cry at the same things. Yeah. We don't all get goosebumps at the same things. We're different. So yeah, you can articulate these things, but there will be an emotional reaction to them when all the cylinders are firing.
You think most of us don't ever get there because we just don't ask the question? So I hear something on TV or I see a movie and I well up, or it really touches me emotionally, but we never go to the next step and go, why does that touch me?
Correct. And usually what we defer to, it's happy, it's sad, we stop there. But I can tell you since I discovered my why, there are the basic human stories that we probably all well up at, but I well up at stories of teamwork. When I see groups of people who come together, literally, it gets me every time. Or stories of sacrifice. You tell me a story of sacrifice, someone who sacrificed something of themselves to help someone else, I'm jelly. I can't help it. And, I don't get all goosebumpy and mushy for all beautiful stories, but those, and sometimes it shows up at the most unusual time, it's just, but I know that about myself now. And now because I know that, I can seek it out.
Does our why change over time at all? As we head down the path, does that ever evolve and become something?
I get that question all the time. People say, I have 4 whys. I'm like, no, you don't. You have 1. And they're like, well, my why has changed. I'm like, no, it hasn't. Our why is the product. It's the sum product of the way we were raised and our upbringing from when we were kids. It's fully formed by our teenage years. The youngest I've done with somebody was, I think, 16 or 17 years old and was fully formed. And the rest of our lives simply offer us an opportunity to either live in balance or out of balance with that why. It is the sum total of who we are. And though experiences like tragedy can give us an opportunity for our true selves to show up, it doesn't form our why if it happens later in life. It exists when we're young.
So you're saying that the why is innate within us.
Correct.
And our only job is to discover what that why is.
To try and discover what it is, and then have the confidence to make decisions to keep that why in balance. When we are happy, when we are inspired, when we are fulfilled, when we're quote unquote in the flow, that's because what we're choosing to do, what we're doing, is consistent with why we do what we do. That's why it feels good. It's in balance, right? But the times where we struggle or stress is high, even though we've done this thing, many times before, and it was always easy before, and I don't know why it hurts now. It's because we chose to do things that's inconsistent with our why. It has nothing to do with how hard we work. If you work hard for something that you don't believe in, that feeling is called stress. If you work hard for something you do believe in, that feeling is called passion, right? It's got nothing to do with how many hours we work. It has to do with how connected we are with the work, and that connection, quote unquote, that thing is called the why.
Do you find that many people are afraid of really asking why because maybe they'll have to admit that they've spent a good portion of their life on the wrong thing?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, everybody has to go at their own pace. I've never been dogmatic about this. I preach my cause and I share the lessons that I have learned that have worked for me and for others. And for those who embrace it quickly, then that's wonderful. And I offer them tools to help them. And for those who are cynical, or for those who are, not sure, then I encourage them to either keep reading or find another solution that helps them. And, in time, hopefully they'll join us in this movement. Inspire those around us.
I guess I just asked that question because I think of the immense courage it would take for somebody, me or whoever, to finally just get to that point of admitting, you know what? I've not been following my why. I've followed somebody else's why. I've allowed somebody else's opinions to be kind of laid over me as a template, and I'm not satisfied with that. That takes courage.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the conversation we had in the previous episode. It's very easy to be honest. Just tell the truth. And that includes telling the truth to ourselves. So yeah, I mean, sometimes the truth is a hard pill to swallow, and we all have to swallow it at some point. So you can either just be honest and work to fix the solution, or you can continue to live in denial and continue to enjoy the high stress that you've been enjoying. So, I mean, like I said, is it right to find love in your 20s, or maybe what about your 30s, or maybe what about your 40s, or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe when you find love, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, and we should just be grateful that we find it when we find it, and not. You can imagine finding love in your 40s and being depressed because you didn't find it in your 20s. So when people discover their why or set out on the journey to find their why, I don't think it matters when they do. I just really hope that they do.
Simon, thank you for your time today. I'm looking forward. We'll have another conversation again on the next episode. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks very much, Dave.
My guest again today, Simon Sinek. You could see why I'm so thrilled to have him on the program, because just about every word he says is a challenge to me, to think about finding my why. And I might be 50, you might be 40 or 30 or 20, whatever, you might be 70. It's never too early. It's never too late for us to discover our why, to discover our purpose on this earth. It's like the blinders are lifted and all of a sudden we understand why we exist. And each of us has it within us to find that. We owe it to ourselves. And I think more importantly, we owe it to the world to find that driving purpose. Because until we do, we are not offering our greatest contribution to the world. We're going to talk more about that later on in the week. But for now, again, thank you, Simon, for sharing and inspiring and challenging us with those words. Pick up his book. There's a whole lot more where that came from. His two books are called Start With Why, and his newest book, Leaders Eat Last. Simon Sinek, you'll find his books. We have a banner ad on our website. Just go to onesimplethingonline.com and click on the banner ad there on the right-hand side of the page, and it will take you to Amazon. We'll actually earn a couple of pennies, too, from Amazon to help support what we're doing here at One Simple Thing. So you're supporting us when you buy the book, as well as supporting Simon and ultimately supporting yourself, because I know how much value those books are going to bring to your life. Anyway, hey, thank you for listening. I'm Dave Kirby. Simon's going to be back with me again on the next episode. We'll continue heading down the path of discovering our own unique individual why. Hopefully you'll listen then. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the One Simple Thing podcast.